Hello world of Facebook and of YouTube and of course Zoom. Welcome everyone to our Wednesday discussion on getting better at being you. And this class I have called Take a Walk in Someone Else's Shoes. This is a very common expression. It's actually not a Jewish expression per se, but it is a very common expression, and we're going to see the Jewish equivalent that is mentioned in a number of sources that is going to say this idea, but everyone else's. Although we can talk a little bit about shoes later on, because shoes as a metaphor for a person's struggles, their reality, their physical and emotional well-being is actually a very well-known comparison. The Gemara tells us that just as the shoes hold the body, so too the body holds the soul. That means our shoes are the kelim, they're the vessels that we put our bodies in. Just like the body is a shoe, it's a na'al that holds the neshama inside it. Just like the body goes into the shoe and the shoe holds the body, so too the body, say the rabbis, holds onto the neshama, right? Just like it's the foot inside the shoe. And that's why you'll see in a number of places shoes being mentioned in Judaism, which is a fascinating discussion, but I'm going to leave it for another time because it's not really what our talk is about. It overlaps, but it's not a main talk. The main talk this afternoon, or whenever you're watching this, is to try very hard to experience, to empathize, to feel what your personal friends, neighbors, colleagues, children, spouses are feeling, and don't judge them until you reach their place. There is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which is basically ethics of our ancestors and rabbis from thousands of years ago. And the very famous Mishnah, which appears in the first chapter, Mishnah number 6, says the following words. Yoshua ben Prachia Omer, a great rabbi called Rabbi Yoshua, the son of Prachia, said the following. Aseh l'charav. You need to make for yourself a rabbi. As a side point, some people understand this to mean Aseh l'charav doesn't just mean to appoint for yourself a rabbi. Not only that everyone needs a spiritual advisor, which we've spoken about before, also means make yourself into a rabbi. That means everyone becomes rabbis? No. That means you yourself should become knowledgeable and you should try to understand as much Torah as possible and become spiritually aware and well-versed so that when you find yourself in situations where you don't have a rabbi to speak to at that moment, you'll know what to do. And you'll know whether this thing you're dealing with is a question at all. So, Aseh l'charav. Number one, everyone needs a spiritual advisor. Even rabbis need rabbis. And Aseh l'charav, make yourself into a great knowledgeable person. Don't always rely upon other people. Sometimes you're going to have to use common sense. And as we know about common sense, it's not so common. So, Aseh l'charav, kaneh lecha chaver. And you need to, well, kaneh literally means to buy, to acquire a friend. Really? Is the Mishnah telling me to buy friends? Yeah, could well be. In order to have friends and keep friends, we need to maintain them and sometimes sustain them. And that may mean giving up your time, your efforts, your energy, and even maybe your financial resources to make sure you have people around you who you consider to be chaverim and chaverot, friends who will be there for you, not only when things are going well, but also when things aren't going so well. What you give out will come back to you as well. So it uses an unusual language of kaneh, acquire, work hard, spend time, effort, resources to make sure you always have a good set of friends around you. So number one, aseh l'charav. Number two, kaneh lecha chaver. The third part is very, very unusual. The third part says not only that, but a person is obligated to have a dam, to judge every other person, et kol ha'adam lekaf zechut, favorably. You're going to have to judge other people favorably. Give people, as you say in English, the benefit of the doubt. There's a lot going on in this Mishnah. I want to mention just a couple of points, which is going to take us to a story, because this entire talk with me today is really just there to give you one story that happened, that's printed in a book, written by someone who died recently, one of my great advisors and rabbis and teachers, Rabbi Abraham J. Twersky. And this is one of my favorite, not only, but one of my favorite stories of this great man that he himself witnessed. So that's going to be the end goal. But let's try to break apart this Mishnah. Let's double click on this Mishnah just a little bit to get some more juice out of it, because there's some tremendous wisdom that is being encoded inside this Mishnah. Aselach harav, you need a spiritual advisor. Once you have that, you'll be able to treat your chavirim and chavirot well. That's why a spiritual advisor comes first. Because unless you have someone to teach you how to interact with other people, you're going to fall into great mistakes. The Torah and those who study and teach Torah will give us guidance of how to make the right type of friends. You don't want any type of friends. You want the right type of friends. And you want friends who are going to give you what you need to become a better version of yourself. And once you have friends, you want to keep them. You definitely want to keep the right friends. So it says in order to do that, I mean, it's all parts of the Mishnah connected. Many of your friends are going to do stupid things. You're going to see many people, acquaintances, people in your communities who do stupid and terrible things. And there's going to be two ways to interpret those things. If you are able to, says Maimonides, lean towards kaf zechut. Give them the benefit of the doubt. There's many reasons why you should do this. Number one is, in most occasions, when you see people do stupid things, they don't mean it. They just do it. And you should not judge them. Not judge them harshly. Sometimes you see someone in the morning, hey, Jim, how you doing? And they seem to ignore you. And you're like, oh, I see. Oh, that's what you think of me. Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell everyone what you're really like. And I'm going to tell everyone how you acted. And maybe they didn't hear you. Maybe they're having a bad morning. Maybe their hearing aid wasn't on. You could think of 1,000 excuses. These aren't excuses, by the way, said the rabbis. These are actually you hoping and praying that this is really the scenario that actually occurred. That is what you're expected to do. That's number one. But there's an extra letter that's in the Mishnah that the rabbis notice. If you want to say judge everyone favorably, you know what it should say? Havedan et kol adam. Kol adam means every person. Judge every person favorably. Give everyone you meet benefit of the doubt. But it doesn't say that. It says Havedan et kol ha'adam. Ha'adam means the person. What do you mean, the person, as opposed to every person? So ha'adam means you have to judge the entire person. We are all very, very quick to take a situation that we are in and to judge the scenario that's presented to us in one very small window without judging all the other factors. And so you may have a friend, someone you're very close to, who's been your friend for many years. And then they'll do or say one thing that you don't like, quite understandably, and maybe correctly. Something not good. What do people do? They just throw it away, get into a big fight, I'm never speaking to you again, and they break it all down. Whoa, take it easy. Havedan et kol ha'adam. There's a lot going on that led to this moment. Who knows what happened to them that day, that week, that lifetime? Maybe something happened that morning. Maybe something happened that triggered this off from their childhood. We're all walking memories of a lot of things that led to this one point. Don't just dismiss this person for one thing. Why are we judging this person on 1% of what they do to us, or even 5 or 10%, when there's a lot more going on? And maybe we should give them benefit of the doubt, although they've done something a little bit terrible, but judge the entire person. There's a lot more going on over here. There's a lot more to this individual than you give them credit for. Who knows what happened? Who knows what's happening at home? Who knows what's happening at work? Maybe they just lost their job. Maybe they just lost a family member. There's a lot going on. We have to remember, and this is not easy, that when you judge them, judge the entire person and judge your entire relationship before you judge them. And this is what I like to refer to, my friends, as the most important. Actually, someone asked this recently. I gave a class recently to a young group of singles who are looking good, willing to get married. And someone said, what do you consider the most important trait when it comes to successful marriage and successful relationship? And I gave an answer, which just came out, but I believe it to be true. And that is empathy. Empathizing with the other person is the key to any successful relationship. That relationship doesn't have to be spouses. It could be friends. It could be business, people who work for you. We always hear stories of people who suffer greatly at work, people they work with. It's not easy. Empathy, being able to, as our title suggests, being able to put yourself into another person's shoes. Now, the expression in Judaism is not that you should put yourself in another person's shoes. The expression actually comes from another Mishnah in Perek Avot. So we're going to jump from chapter 1 to chapter 2, verse 4. And the Mishnah says, V'al tadin et chavrecha, and don't judge your friend ad shetagia limkomo. So the first Mishnah says, give people benefit of the doubt, right? You should lean towards a favorable judgment when that person does something to you. And the way to do that, remember, was to judge the entire person and everything that's happened to them in the past, 24 hours, week, month, or lifetime. But there's another piece to this, and that is you should not judge a person until you have tagia lim komo, you have reached their place. So we don't have the shoe comment in Judaism, but we have the similar comment that don't judge a person until you have reached their place. Now, there's two ways to understand this Mishnah. Way number one is don't judge people ever. Always give them benefit of the doubt. Don't judge people to have done wrong. Why? Because you're never going to reach their place. What does their place mean? Everything that's ever happened to them. You're never going to fully understand what has happened to these people. You don't know what their day, their life, their parents, their grandparents, what their children are treating them. You got no idea. Therefore, since it's impossible to reach a person's place, don't even bother. Meaning, don't judge other people. And that is true. And that is opinion number one in Jewish thought. You're never going to be in someone else's place. You're never going to understand the full context and richness of their life and events in their life and whatever happened to them. So don't bother judging them at all. That's one opinion. But there's another opinion that we're going to go with and we're going to ride on for a few moments. And that is the following. You know what? Actually, you should judge. And there are times when we are expected to judge other people. When is that? Shetagia lim komo. When you've reached their place. But didn't we just say that we never reach someone's place? Never fully. But maybe we have experienced challenges and things in our lives. And maybe we have so much experience and empathy from things we've heard or even personal experiences that when this situation or this person approaches us with this challenge or problem, we are actually able to judge them. Now you can judge them. You've been through this. You have experience. Now you can judge them. That means you can be expected to be judged by a person who has been through it and come through the other side. You'll see, for example, and we're now going to quote my great Rebbe, Rabbi Twersky, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, who writes many times that in addiction therapy, he was a psychiatrist, an addiction specialist. He had a place called Gateway, which dealt with people trying to become sober from drugs. And he would say that the best person to counsel these individuals is a sponsor. What's a sponsor? A person who's been through this. They know what alcoholism does. They know what drug addiction does. And therefore, this person can judge you and they can tell you that's not the right thing to do. Who are you to judge me? I can, because I've been to the hell that you've been in. I know where you are. I've walked in your shoes. And now that I have, and I know where you're going to go, if you're going to continue this destructive lifestyle behavior, I can judge you. And that is the Mishnah. Don't judge until you reach their place. You reach their place, now judge. Now accept rebuke from this person who's been where you are, who understands exactly where you are going if you continue in this self-destructive behavior. And so, walk in someone else's shoes, empathize with them, understand their wants, their needs and desires, and once you do that, then you can have an opinion. Once you've been through that experience, you're allowed to judge. Even so, we judge favorably, but sometimes we don't. Because real friends are the people who says, you are making a mistake. And I know you are, because I was making that same mistake, and this is where you're going to end up at the end of this. Who are you to judge me? I can judge you. I know where this is going, because I've been there, or I almost fell in myself. I want to share with you, and this is the entire purpose I chose this topic, to tell this one story. And this is one of my favorite stories. And if you want to read it, it's found in this one of Rabbi Twersky's books called Do Unto Others, which is a beautiful book, short book, with stories and events from Rabbi Twersky's life from his many, many years working at a hospital which was called St. Francis's Hospital. By the way, many, many Christians would come to this Hasidic rabbi and psychiatrist to his hospital because they wanted to come to someone who was a God believer, and there was actually a convent where many of the nuns who were going through challenges, and there's stories on this topic as well, which is for another time, they would actually go and travel far just to go to this great rabbi and psychiatrist to receive treatment in his center, because they felt he could empathize and understand their needs as God-believing spiritual people to help them through their challenges. So one day in this hospital, psychiatric institution, they would bring in young doctors to give them tours and a way to learn about mental health problems by being part of this mental institution. So Rabbi Twersky tells the following unbelievable story. And he says, as a prelude, exactly what we're saying right now. Don't judge other people. But if you want to help someone, try not to judge them. Put yourself into their place, into their shoes. And right now, this story I'm about to tell you is literally someone who absolutely puts himself directly into this person's place in order to help them. And Rabbi Twersky says, before he writes the story, and I've heard him tell the story live, he said, had I not seen the following event with my own eyes, I would not have believed it. So he says, don't believe this because you're hearing it. Third hand, I'm telling you what I saw with my own eyes. And he says it changed his life when the following event happened. It's a small event, but it was epic, about really putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Here's the story. So he's taking this group of doctors around this mental institution and talking, discussing, taking questions on mental health. And this is going back to the 60s, 70s, where mental health was just starting to be fully understood and treated in more up-to-date ways. And there was a part of the tour of the mental institution that they would see what they used to call museum pieces. Museum pieces means those patients who there is no treatment for and they're not able to live on the outside. They can't just be in and out patients like most patients. They basically are hospitalized for their entire lives because the condition, the mental condition they're suffering from is so severe they can't survive on the outside. And therefore they were known in the hospital industry, I guess, as he writes, I wasn't aware of this, as museum pieces, people who are kind of pretty much in the hospital their entire lives. There was one guy in the hospital, a senior patient, he says, who had been admitted 50 2 years before the events of this story. He'd been living in this mental hospital for 52 years. He was a mute, he never spoke. And he had what they described as schizophrenia, although supposedly when he arrived in the hospital, the term schizophrenia hadn't even been coined yet, and it was called dementia praecox, which I'd never heard before, but that's what it was called. So we're going right back. And when this man arrived, that was his condition. And what happened? So this patient, describes Dr. Twersky, had the following symptoms which manifested his schizophrenia. Every morning he would wake up, he would go and eat breakfast, and then he would make his way to the corner of the room, and he would contort his body into a weird and strange shape with his arms and legs twisted like this. And he would stand in that position for hours on end until lunch. Then he would dismantle himself, go and eat lunch, not saying a word, go back into the same corner and retwist himself into another weird position with his legs folded, his arms crossed, and stand there. And he would do that until dinner. He would then go sit down, eat his dinner, go back and put himself into another position till bedtime. Then he would go to sleep and never say a word. And you can imagine, over 52 years of doing this, first of all, the physical toil on his body. The doctor explains that he would have terrible epidemic problems with his feet. It's a very unusual thing to do to your body, being twisted every day for months and years and decades in these weird, unusual physical positions. So there he was, twisted into this position every day. Now you can imagine that hundreds of doctors over 52 years of doing this had tried everything they could to get him not to do this and to sit down. And they tried talk therapy, and they tried electric shock therapy, and they tried medications, and they tried everything, but no one could get through to this guy. Every day, for years and years and years, he would stand in the corner of this mental institution, 52 years, and refuse to move and sit down and twist himself into this position and just stand there. And that's what he did. So in that context, Dr. Twersky is walking around with these young medical students. And he says, this is old Jim. He's been here for 52 years. And every day he puts himself in this position. And we don't know why. And we tried everything, but we can't seem to get him to stop. And this is just who he is. And this is one of the museum pieces. And this is one of the symptoms, supposedly, of schizophrenia. No matter what medication or therapies we've given him, it does not work. And he's about to move on and show and discuss other things in the hospital. And a young medical student who was with Dr. Twersky says, can I ask you a question? He says, yeah. He goes, can I speak to that guy? And Dr. Twersky says, yeah, I mean, if you want to. And as the young boy was walking over, a young medical student, Twersky's thinking, what's this guy going to do? We've tried everything. No one has got through to this guy in 52 years. And so the guy approached this man and he said, come take a seat. You must be tired. And the guy looked at this medical student like he's crazy, right? You've had that experience before. Like, what do you want from me? I'm standing here doing this. Who are you? And Dr. Twersky says, the guy kept pacing and pacing around and thinking and thinking and thinking. And then he saw like a moment where a light bulb went off in this young medical student's head. He did the following. Listen carefully. This is a life-changing story, I think. The young student approached this man and stood next to him. And he looked at his feet and he twisted his legs into the exact same position his legs were in. And he saw the way his body was facing, and so he twisted his body into the exact same position as this man was in. And he looked at his hands, and he saw the way his hands were, and he completely replicated exactly the position that this schizophrenic patient was in. And then he turned around to this man, and he says, don't worry, I'll stand here and I'll do this. You go take a seat. And Dr. Tversky says, we were all standing there with our mouths open, as for the first time in 52 years, this man put his arms down, uncrossed his legs, and went to sit down. 52 years. No one was able to get through to this patient, and one young doctor, after hundreds and hundreds had tried before to make some kind of change in this man's behavior, was able to make him do something that he had not done in 52 years. Now, Dr. Tversky says, this had a major impact on my life, this one weird, strange event of this one doctor. And there's many lessons you can learn from this. I mean, one lesson is, everyone's going to say to you, don't bother, it's been tried before. And many people say this to me, don't bother, forget about it, you can't make a change, you're never going to make an impact. Hundreds of people smarter than you, more qualified than you have tried. And here comes along this person and they make a change. So there's definitely a lesson here, which isn't today's topic, but it's a great lesson in perseverance. Many people are going to say, don't bother, thousands have tried. And you'll be like, yeah, but I'm 1001. Maybe I can make a difference. Okay, that's one part of the story. But I want to focus on another part. What was going on inside this patient's mind? We have no idea. The guy's got schizophrenia. Who knows what he was thinking? He could have been thinking that he was holding up the entire universe by doing this. And if he were to dismantle himself, the entire universe would disappear. Maybe. Who knows? His actions were not rational. They were totally irrational. So trying to figure out what was in his patient's mind is almost irrelevant. But what was inside this young doctor's mind, his methodology of making a change, and I have no doubt this young man became an extremely incredible, successful doctor. He realized that if you want to take a change in someone else, you're going to have to put yourself in their place. And usually we take that metaphorically, right? You don't literally put yourself in someone else's shoes. You don't literally stand in their place. But sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. If you want to make a change, if you want to impact another person, what you're going to have to do is divest yourself of every notion, every precondition, every idea in your mind, and enter into that person. Even myself, I get involved in a lot of counseling, a lot of marriage counseling, and I go in there, and I'll be honest with you, as soon as I sit down, I'm judging. It's just a natural thing. I know the Mishnah we just read at the beginning of the class says, don't judge a person until you reach their place. Give people the benefit of the doubt. And I try to do that. But we judge. It's just who we are. And judging is good. Judging keeps us safe. If we don't judge circumstances around us, if we don't judge certain people, we'll become friends with everyone, and not everyone is worthy of being our friends. Some people remain acquaintances, and some people we should stay away from. So judging is a faculty that was given to us in order for us to remain safe in our professional lives, in our family lives, in our friendships. That's all well and good. But sometimes you've got no choice. You're put into someone else's life and they're thrown into yours, and you're going to have to judge the circumstance, situation you are in. But sometimes, in order to be successful in bringing change to a company, to other people, because a company for the most part is usually just people who work there, or to families, or to friendships, or to marriages, you're going to have to divest all of those things that cloud your mind. All of those things which make up your makom, your place, your shoes. Take your shoes off and walk in those person's shoes for a few moments. So although maybe you detest this person and detest what they've done, you're going to have to try to figure out what led them to this point in their life or this point of their day that made them say this to you. So how quickly are we to judge other people, right? And this person cuts in front of you in traffic, or this person puts their shopping cart, right, where it says 10 items or less, and they have 11 items in their cart, all one, same item, so it's really like one, and you're ready to kill and shout and scream. Or you're in the restaurant, the waiter doesn't treat you the way you want to be treated, right? They bring you that steak that you just don't enjoy, which happens to me regularly because I'm the worst orderer of food in a restaurant. If you know what to order in a restaurant, don't order what I have. And you get frustrated, irritated, and immediately you want to shout and scream, get angry, which we all do. Reach that person, put yourself in that person's position somehow. That waitress or waiter, who knows what they've been through, right? That person in the supermarket, conjure up in your mind a scenario where you would do the same thing. Because most of the time, the stuff we criticize, we do ourselves, right? We've all cut in line. We've all driven badly. We've all got angry. We've all lost our tempers. We're all hypocrites. Don't judge another person until you reach their place. The story I just told you is someone who literally was able to achieve the maximum, highest level of change in another person by taking off their own shoes and literally putting themselves into that person's place. When you do that, you will be able to make an incredible change of other people, and you won't be so quick to judge other people. Havedam et kol hadam. Judge the entire person. They're going through a lot. They're going through challenges that you can see, but there's a lot of stuff that you don't see. No matter how bad they are, there's going to be a part of them that needs to be judged favorably. So when you react to them, you've got to keep that in mind. That story should be in the schut of Rabbi Abraham J. Twersky, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, who we are in the Shloshim still, someone who gave of himself and was able to take his entire life. Just one other thing I must mention, which I heard in an interview, and I heard him say this many times when I met with him and heard his many lectures and shiurim. But someone said to him, how did you write 60 books? He wrote 60, imagine that, 60, 6-0. I've written 3 and I'm done. 60 books. And he said, I haven't written 60 books. I've written one book in 60 ways. Because every single one of my books is exactly the same topic. And that is dealing with low self-esteem. That, he says, is the root to all problems. It's the root of all addictions. It's the root to all family problems. People suffering from chronic and debilitating low self-esteem. He says every book, and he wrote books on science, he wrote books on medicine, he wrote books on Judaism, he wrote books on Jewish topics and other Sfarim. Everything he wrote, he says, it's all about one thing. If we are able to really love ourselves, we will be able to love other people, and most of our challenges and problems would disappear. This, my friends, this story is the true example of Yehavta L'Recha Kamocha. Because if we were found in a situation where we've not done the right thing, which we all do, we want other people to come in and judge us favorably. And we want other people to act to us like they would act to themselves and give themselves benefit of the doubt. Thank you for joining, everyone. Have a wonderful and successful and beautiful week. Shalom, shalom.